The final stage of the HMS Thunderer marathon will begin in 9 days with the next update, and I've already seen a few Thunderers sailing around in the wild, so I decided to take the ship out for a spin to see what kind of result I could get. And what do you know, it was a pretty good one that I felt was worth putting on YouTube. But before we get into the particulars of this battle, I'll show you the commander build. We've got John Fisher at the helm, standard mod selection as well, with aiming systems mod 1, propulsion, concealment, and reload. Fisher's two inspirations are Kondo and Swirsky. That's mostly because I think Thunderer is very much a mid to long range sniping type battleship. That generally you want to shoot things with HE, melt them down, but you also want to switch to AP when the situation calls for it. These are, after all, 18-inch guns, and they have good parameters on both the HE and the AP. The HE is a little bit cracked, and I think fairly toxic. 8,200 maximum HE shell damage with a 63% fire chance and 114 millimeters of pen. That's enough power to melt down any battleship you see at long distance. But the AP does a maximum of 14,900, and they are, again, 457 millimeter guns, so that can be quite devastating. For the most part, though, especially early on in the battle, I think you probably do want to stay back. We've got a lot of assistance on this flank. We have a destroyer pushing into the Delta Cap, who will undoubtedly provide vision for all of us. But then we've got this cruiser here that's also pushing into the Delta Cap. Maybe a little bit inadvisable. The other cruiser, though, to the right-hand side of the screen, he's going to be hugging that island chain over there and doing some good work. And in fact, we're sort of moving in that direction to potentially join him. Use the islands as concealment to maybe push up a little bit further. Initial shot on Colombo there does light a fire, which he promptly DCPs. And we have the HE chambered once again for a follow-up shot if we do get any spotting. Looks like everybody's concealed because that cruiser, I think it's a Michelangelo, is smoked up. But there's Napoli B. I think he's who shot at us with the AP a few moments ago. HE downrange at him. Sometimes the accuracy on these guns is a little bit iffy, but we do get another hit and another fire. With a 63% fire chance, Thunderer will more or less light a fire every salvo, if enough shells hit, that is. Anyway, Colombo and Yamato spotted out there. We definitely don't want to push into this flank. You could say we're not necessarily doing the job of the battleship since that Michelangelo out there is getting focused down by the Napoli, the Yamato, Colombo, etc. He's got a ticket back to port, and they're about to punch it right now. And you could say that as a battleship, I should be closer to the action and attracting fire, but I wouldn't try tanking in Thunderer. That would be the one thing the ship is terrible at. The armor scheme is not great. It's coated in 32 millimeters of armor practically everywhere. Although the belt, the belt and the deck are 32, but the armor belt that protects the Citadel is 406. Only thing about that is the armor belt is the Citadel. If something pens it, it's gonna hit the Citadel, and you're gonna have a quick trip back to port yourself in HMS Thunderer. It's just not the kind of battleship that wants to tank. That's not where its strengths lie. Anyway, we've reached our initial goal here. You can see that the Delta Cap is fine. There, I don't think, was any need for us to push into it anyway, since the destroyer has managed to take it, and he doesn't seem like he's got any opposition standing in his way, aside from maybe this Napoli and those three battleships out there in the distance, but none of them really look inclined to push the cap for some reason. Anyway, there's Napoli as we take a nasty hit from, I don't know what that was, probably Colombo way out there. We got the AP chambered. Napoli isn't exactly willing to give up the broadside, though. And we've got to take care that we don't get too stuck on this island right here. I think we've got the clearance, but another thing we don't want to do is push into Napoli. If you've watched this channel, you can see, or you've seen, what a cracked ship Napoli can be, especially in brawling situations. His secondaries are actually kind of a big threat. They can pen our armor scheme pretty much everywhere, or at least in most places. And they do a lot of damage and are very accurate. And then, of course, he's got torpedoes. Another reason not to push into him is just inviting us to eat torpedoes. Although, out of all the battleships at Legendary tier, Thunderer may be the best at dodging them just because of its ridiculous 10.4-second base rudder shift time. Anyway, Napoli continues to push in. This cruiser here by the island, he's going to be of pretty good assistance to us. We've loaded the HE back. No point in not using it at that kind of angle. It's got enough damage and the pen to take Napoli out, although I'm pretty confident that cruiser right there, whatever it is, would have been able to take Napoli out as well if he reached the other side of that island. But now, this cap is clear. No red ship is really attempting to push it. I suppose we have Yamato here that is about to come around that island. See if we can't lob some HE over there and get a fire on him. He may have just DCP'd because of those torpedoes. In fact, his DCP might have been still running when those shells hit. No fire. 88,000 damage so far. Blue team has lost 2 ships. Red team has lost 2 ships. And we're about 9 minutes left to go in the battle. So it hasn't turned into a one-sided blowout yet. But the positioning of the red team, I don't think bodes well for the chances of this match being actually all that competitive. They've got that Yamato over here who is going to be coming around that island and maybe pushing into this direction, but it seems unlikely given he's got no HP left, no assistance, and he'll undoubtedly be spotted by this friendly destroyer here, who I'm sure is eager to get his torpedoes on target. If I remember correctly, Yamato is going to end up turning around and kiting away. Hard to blame him on a flank like this, where really he's not going to see anything to shoot at between my highly concealed battleship and that cruiser that's headed toward the center. And so he just knows he's going to be spotted by this destroyer, and he doesn't want to push in. There he goes kiting away, which is going to give us an opportunity to farm free damage with no risk of damage in return. Bit toxic that Thunderer is capable of things like that. That's a lot of damage from the HE, and 2 fires. Of course, Yamato promptly uses DCP, but that's not going to be good. With this next salvo here, there's another one out in the air. Looks pretty accurate, too. And, well, 63% fire chance on Thunderer's HE. Yeah, there's another one with 2 pens that do, maybe that was 5-6k damage. Yamato's got about 2.5 bars of health left, and we'll see if we can't light a second permafire on him before switching to AP. The reason we're doing that, of course, is because we're paying attention to the minimap directly in front of us. You can see 16.8 kilometers. There is a battleship playing the island bow tanking game like it's a cruiser. And, of course, it's a Yamato. There's also a cruiser somewhere near him, and if that Yamato were to reverse past that island or travel forward and go in front of it, we're going to have broadside shots on him. So, we don't shoot our guns again. You don't actually have to shoot your guns on reload every time you're playing a battleship. That fire is going to be lethal to Yamato, and there he goes for our second kill of the game, actually. And what do you know? Other Yamato playing the bow-tanking island cruiser game comes out from behind the island, doesn't know we're here because of our concealment, and the AP is ready to go. You can see it's pretty effective. Not that that's all that impressive. If a Yamato gives you broadside, it is maybe one of the easiest battleships at Legendary tier to do that to. But 30,000 damage from a single salvo, this AP takes that Yamato out. There's Conqueror left, I think Colombo over there, and then one final enemy cruiser, which I believe is USS Seattle. AP might be good in that case, too. Conqueror probably thinks it's the ultimate HE spammer at Legendary tier, but I don't know about that these days. There's another fire, our 9th of the game, HE out once again. And as you can see, too, this John Fisher build really helps out when we've lost about half of our HP. I think our main battery was reloading in 21 seconds, and that'll be due to John Fisher's unique skill called Dance with Death that reduces the reload time per 1% HP lost. I think if you've got 8 guns firing HE with a 63% fire chance and they can shoot every 21 seconds when you're at half health, well, even the likes of Conqueror isn't going to be able to compete with that kind of HE spam. But back to the AP for a moment, because what do you know? There's Colombo and there's Seattle, who also doesn't know exactly what our position is and is turning broadside to it. We even get a shot on him without being spotted since Conqueror has gone down. Seattle, I suppose, is a little bit more wise to the fact that there's something here that could obliterate him. He turns for a moment, but we've also got Colombo broadside, and Colombo's Citadel, not quite as easy to hit as Yamato's. Apparently, we're not going to shoot it, though, because Seattle's turning around again. This maybe was the right choice. I don't know. We're on 3 kills, though. This is Xarkun territory. We get another 30,000 damage hit on the Seattle, but it's not enough to take him out. Instead, the torpedo, the Holland, does that, and that ends the battle. So no Xarkun is possible here. But I think this was a decent look at the Thunderer with 202,000 damage done, 2,900 XP behind the Smollin that was on our flank. GG to him. But yeah, I think Thunderer, with this kind of main battery firepower between the cracked HE and the really effective AP, this is a little bit of a toxic ship. So, if you're close to completing the marathon, I think by the time you do, you'll probably enjoy this, but you will want to play it as a bit of a passive sniper, I think. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.